Hi guys, this is Blackfinch with another World of Tanks review. And this time we're going to be looking at the JagPanzer 38T, or as it's known in game, the Hetzer, which is a name that it was mistakenly given by the Allies that kind of stuck. The 38T is actually a late war tank, and there's a few clues to that in the game. The fact that it's got the FUG 11 quite advanced radios, and like say the Stug, which is the next down the tree, only goes to the 7 with a much shorter range. The JagPanzer 4, 7, the JagPanther is where we start seeing the 12 and some of the more advanced ones. How historically accurate that is, I don't know, to be fair. I'm not an expert on the radios used by the German army in the Second World War. So if someone does know, please feel free to put some comments below, because I would be quite interested to find out, because I'm sad and find that kind of thing interesting. But so it was designed late war, based on the chassis of the JagPanzer, the 38T, which were the tanks that were captured by the German army when they went into Czechoslovakia in 1938 and absorbed its military into their own. They were a fairly effective tank, and they saw lots of use in France and Operation Barbarossa. But late war, the Germans needed a quick, easily manufactured tank destroyer, so they settled on the 38T chassis, and they got some less typical companies who hadn't got masses of tank building experience to build these, Skoda being a prime example. But it was armed with a 75mm gun, which looks more like this. It was actually the Pak 39, so that's the advanced one that you get, and you start off with the STUK 40L43, which is alright. But so I'll look at the three areas we normally look at: the mobility of the vehicle, the protection of the vehicle, and the firepower. And we'll do in reverse order. So we're going to look at the gun options. So first things, the gun that you start with is the Stuk 40, 77.5 centimeter or 75mm anti-tank gun, which is not massively dissimilar to the one that you'd been using on the Marder previously, but is at least a little bit more accurate with an aiming time of less than a decade. So it's already going to feel like an improvement. And from there, you've got two choices, and both have their merits and advantages and their disadvantages. Probably the most popular is the 10.5 centimeter derp gun, as it's generally referred, which has got fairly poor penetration, terrible accuracy, a slow rate of fire, but with its standard shells has an average damage of 350. Now, when you consider the Stug is a level 4 tank and it only has 270 health, let's see what other level 4 tanks I've got in my hangar. So the SU-85, 260 hit points, the Marder 270, the Matilda 370, so it survives an average penetrating hit. What else do we have? The T40 275, the Covenator 340, the Valentine 340. Let's go back to the Stug. So the Hetzer, the average damage on that, if you score a penetrating hit, is going to one-shot kill most level 4 tanks, all level 3 tanks, any level 2s that you encounter, and it's going to do enough damage to alarm some level 5 and some level 6 tanks. I mean, even level 6 heavies, if you were to get a penetrating shot, 350 damage is very significant. But it only has 64mm of penetration, so unless you're bullying lower tier tanks, quite often it's going to bounce. I mean, the Hetzer itself can't penetrate its own front armor because it's just too big. So you have the option of forking out for the premium shells, which give you 104mm of penetration, which still isn't amazing, or going with high explosive, which gives you 53mm of penetration, but being a HE round, it's always going to do some damage, even if it doesn't do the maximum. Now, if it penetrates, it's going to do the maximum, and high explosive also has a multiplier for its probability of inflicting critical damage on components. So a penetrating hit with high explosive tends to knock out tracks, kill members of the crew, and damage critical systems, and hinder the performance of the tanks in other way, much more likely to set the tank on fire, for example, which is always a good result. So if I go back to the garage, just to give you an idea, I currently have the 7.5cm equipped, but if we go to the 10, I personally don't use any armor piercing. The penetration 48 to 80mm, 40 to 66, it's just so close that I'm going to have the high explosive, and know I do damage every time when I go for 13 high explosive and 7 premium. 20 shells is not a lot. You don't get a massive ammo capacity with this tank, and you will often be in danger of running out. And at 4,000 credits a pop, it's not realistic to use the high explosive shells if this is, if you don't have higher level tier tanks to be earning yourself the money. So I know people who very successfully use just high explosive, and that's a very valid option. And if you find yourself in level 6 games, suddenly you've got a gun that can still damage the T150s and KV2s and the heavy tanks, the big armored tanks that you will occasionally have to face. This is just going to frustrate them. But key thing to remember about this gun, it's really inaccurate. 0.53 accuracy at 100 meters. You really need to drive right up to people and fire it in their face to be guaranteed of a hit. You can sit back and snipe with it, but just be prepared for the fact that a lot of your shots will miss, and with a 7 rounds per minute rate of fire with my crew and all my upgrades, that's not great either. So you will miss, and then you'll have a fairly long wait to your next shot. The other option is the historically accurate 7.5cm pack 39. That fires twice as fast, so you're going to be getting a shot out every 3 to 4 seconds, I guess. Has 110mm of penetration, which is fairly decent. It's going to struggle against some of the big level 6 heavies, especially if they're angled. An average damage of 110, which isn't great, but 0.37 accuracies, I mean, it's still not great, but it's not bad, and a 1.7 second aiming time's pretty good. Let's see if it'll let me compare that to, here we go, comparable to another tank destroyer. So if you look at the top gun on the SU-85, which is a tier higher, it's a tier 6 gun, and this is a tier 5, because the gun's really the thing on the SU-85, and falls down in other areas, but the penetration's not as good, and the damage is not as good, but the accuracy is pretty good, and the aim time is also fairly reasonable. So and you obviously have a slightly higher rate of fire, so it's not a bad gun. Most people do opt to go for the 10.5cm gun, because it just does so much damage when it does penetrate. And I know people that use it with the standard AP shells as well. I've been trying both. The 7.5 gives you more range options, and it's more reliable, and it's got a higher rate of fire. It just does less impact when it does hit. So at 15 rounds a minute, you're firing 2 shells for every one, but you're only doing 220 damage. If you can penetrate with the other one, you'll have done 350 in that time, or 400 and something if you go for the high explosive. So you do get 40 shells if you take this gun, which I'm sure the mathematically gifted amongst you have worked out that with twice the rate of fire is just twice the number of shells. But that does give you a little more tactical flexibility, and when you're firing a target on its last legs, one shell is not so costly as one shell of the 10.5. So it's a personal choice thing here. The majority of players go for the 10.5, and the heat ammo is very, very good. You will be one-shot killing a lot of things. You can one-shot kill level 5 tanks sometimes. T-34 has 450 hit points if you were lucky. Shot to the side, catch the engine on fire perhaps. Some have got less than that. I don't have... Where's the Crusader? Where are you hiding? If we look at a light tank, Crusader, 450 hit points. It's quite tough for a light tank. That's not a great example, is it? But yeah, you can, in theory, if not one-shot kill, certainly take a huge chunk of health off. And if you can set fires, you will be one-shot killing level 5s. But the gun options are pretty good. So now we'll have a quick look at the armor, and I'm going to flick to another application. So we're looking at the armor profile of the Hetzer, and I'm using a program called World of Tanks Viewer. It's on version 1.011. Patch 1 is the one I'm using, which was up to date as of about 2 weeks ago. And this has pretty much every tank from the game. It installs them from your game files, and you view them in either the premium garage or the basic one if you like your garage dirty. It's quite a useful application. So as you can see, we have here our Hetzer. The first thing I'm going to do is look at the sloping of the armor. So from the front, you can see the top part of the armor has a very severe slope, and then the lower glacis slightly less sloped. The sides are quite well sloped, but again, I mean, I don't have the angle information to hand, and if you look at the real statistics for the tank, you can't guarantee with World of Tanks that the way that they've got it set up in the game is actually the same as in reality. So I will ignore that. But from the front, presented with a well sloped target. The side's quite sloped. The top of the rear is very sloped, but there's this big flat juicy target down the bottom here. So let's have a look at the thicknesses of that, and this is the magic of this program. So we can see all of our front armor, including the lower glacis, which is usually a weak spot on tanks, is 60mm thick. Now it's a slightly weaker spot because it's not sloped. And what sloping armor does, for those that don't know, and I'm sure many of you do, is it effectively increases the thickness, because instead of going directly through, you've got to pass through a large amount of material. Now there's loads and loads of diagrams and information about this if you want to study it. Google armor sloping. The T-34 was one of the first tanks to really employ this successfully. By the time the Hetzer had come about, obviously it was readily accepted by pretty much everyone. But so the front armor on this, very thick. The Cupola's got 60mm of armor on the mantlet, and if you remove the gun mantlet, there's not much armor underneath it, but that's 60mm of solid steel. It's got to offer some protection. Any shots into the yellow tracks are just going to damage the tracks. They're not going to inflict hit points on the tanks. They're just going to stop it from moving, which isn't an invalid tactic if you're fighting a Hetzer, because if we move to the side and to the rear, we can see our armor. The rear is in the region of 10mm or less, and even with that sloping, shots are going to go through from anything, and the side's only about 20mm. So, I mean, considering what this is going to be facing between level 2 and level 6 tanks, really, I mean, if angled severely, you might bounce some shots from like a Panzer 1C shooting its machine gun or something like that, but most shots are going to go through your side, which returns to the point where if you can't damage the front, shoot at the tracks and try and stop it moving, and then get beside it, because not only is its armor extremely weak, it obviously can't shoot back at you. So that's the best way to combat a Hetzer, and obviously if you're driving a Hetzer, that's the most effective way people can combat you. So it's best to avoid that. Really think about where you position a Hetzer, because from the side, from the rear, anything flanking you is going to penetrate you with every shot, and 270 isn't a bad number of hit points, but it's not an awful lot, and it will evaporate very, very quickly. But if you can keep your target in front of you, you've got a very powerful gun and a lot of armor. So it really dictates how you play this tank. It's an aggressive tank when the enemy's in front of it, and it needs to be in the right position. You need to think about your position an awful lot. So that gives us a general overview of the armor, and now we'll look at the next area. Before I move on, I might also add that this tank is very, very stealthy, and a main part of its protection is its low profile, its small size, and its ability to be stealthy, and that features in the third area, which is the mobility. Now, my tank weighs in at 17.4 tons with vents, a rammer, camo net, and the 10.5, or if I go for the 7 and a bit, it's just under 17 tons. You've only got 220 horsepower, so it's not going to give you, it's not great, it's better than a 10:1 ratio on horsepower to tons, but it's not massively better. Its top speed to 42 kilometers, which it will reach, but it's not super fast. It's quick enough to get you where you want to go, but it's not one of the, there's quite a lot of mid-level tank destroyers that are crazy fast. They tend to have paper thin armor, but they're crazy fast. If we compare it to the Marder 38T, the same tier, 180 horsepower engine, and you're only looking at 11 tons, so that's going to be a bit more pokey. A top speed of 47 miles an hour. The SU-85, 210 horsepower. That's getting on for 20, getting on closer for a 13-ton tank to 20:1, and that's very, very quick accelerating. Its top speed is comparable, but it'll get there much faster. But it's quite a mobile tank. It's not hideous, and the weight is low, so it's not one of these tanks that wallows around like if I can find it, this monstrosity. Anything based on a Sherman, really, or anything designed by the Americans that's low tier, tends to have its weight quite high, and they wallow around, and they're not so good over rough terrain, which is not far from the truth. They were quick tanks, but, and again, this is actually, it's got the lowest speed limit of all of them, the most powerful engine, and the best power to weight ratio of all of the tank destroyers I've just looked at. So the Hetzer's a mobile tank, but not super mobile. It's very, very well protected from the front, diabolically poorly protected from the side, and the rear. And it's got a choice of either a fairly accurate long-range gun or a potentially very devastating short-range gun. I popped on both and taken the tank for a spin in 2 games. So let's have a quick look at those. So America finds the map, and it's a level 6 encounter battle. Myself and my platoon mate are the only level 4s in the game. This has become a recurring theme recently. And this game I'm using the 10.5cm derp gun. And at this point, just always pays to scroll through the list of enemy tanks, have a guess where you think that they're going to go. On this map, people tend to go to the Forest of Fail, despite the fact the objective's on completely the other side of the map. And I've seen games where there's been 8 minutes of camping and nothing achieved. So I was just pulling back here to see where my teammates go, discussing with my teammate what we thought might be happening here, and we see, as predicted, tanks heading wholesale to the Forest of Fail. So a really good position to be on this map is the hill around H2 and 3 and G1. Had a quick look just in case. Fired off a shot, but didn't have high expectations of it hitting, and there were so many tanks. He was the only tank on the map, everyone's looking that way, and there's about 1 billion people shooting him. There was no point hanging around, so continued on to get in position. The Hellcat, which is a ridiculously fast tank that I'm close to unlocking actually, so quite looking forward to, there may be a review of that in the future. Just starting to play the Wolverines in the next couple of days, and then I'm going to move from there to the Hellcat. So is a very popular tank destroyer, but he's already up on the hill in a good position, using the bushes for cover. Now this slope here lets you move up and down quite nicely. Checking around, seeing where everybody is. There's no targets in sight at the moment. Don't want to get in his way. He was here first. He staked out the good spot. Obviously the perfect spot, because I can't see anything at the moment. I don't know what my teammate's doing over there. We're waiting presumably to see what crops up, but it's just a waiting game. I can see the I'm using XVM with the map mod, and I've got a purple line marked on my map which shows the limit of the render range. Anything outside the purple square you can't see, so it's a useful thing. Now the Hellcat's popped up inside the square, but behind the building. Our Hellcat's in the perfect position to shoot him. I'll see if I can get alongside, but by that time he's disappeared, and I could probably have seen that KV-1 had I stayed where I was. So there's a moral to that story. And he disappears just as I get back in position. I fire a shot anyway, more out of frustration than expectation. I think the gun sights are Jimbos. I'm using XVM config that I'm happy to send out to people. Churchill 1 appears, and the turret armor of the Churchill 1 is much weaker than the hull armor, but the side hull armor is fairly weak, and he's foolishly side on. But I fired one speculative shot, but he has moved. I'm surprised that hit. It just arced over the hill and got him. Again, I'm using the high explosive here because I'm not confident of penetrating at this range. Don't want to waste the premium ammunition. Someone else finishes him off. More sitting and waiting. I actually think my teammate was having connection problems and had gone AFK for a massive period of time once going up onto the hill. But the base is being captured, so I decide that no one else is going to scout. I'm going to head down, and actually everyone's drawn the same conclusion. So the T1 Heavy's pulling forward and the T34, and this ARL takes a shot, but he's not paying any attention to me. I've got HE loaded, so his good armor protection from the front doesn't matter. And then I want to get out the way of that gun, try and come around behind him, shoot him, but my team finish him off. No, I don't want to be there. I certainly don't want to be capping. So I head back in the direction of the hill, but this VK appears in the JagPanzer 4. Take time to aim at the JagPanzer 4, still on high explosive. I haven't used any premium there. I do catch him on fire though, which is one of the big advantages of high explosives, and that secures me to kill. We've lost the T1. I'm guessing to this VK. I hope to get the killing shot here, but alas, just as I'm locking in on him, he dies. So at this stage, they've only got this KV1 and this VK3001D left. I'm driving that way with no real expectations. My platoon mate is back, having not had the best game due to some technical issues, but closing in. The VK's having a fight with this Hellcat, and our KV2 is punishing that KV1. The Hellcat inflicts a horrible shot, and I miss, which annoys me immensely. But I often find myself driving a Hetzer like this, and in Tier 4 games this tactic is very valid. You just blunder up to people and open fire at close range. I knew I had the health there to take his hit, so we secure the win. So looking at the results, that's 23,000 credits earned, just shy of 1,000 XP with a premium account, 4 tanks damaged, 2 with the killing shot, and 3 critical hits. I was 4th in the team on experience and damage, which is quite pleasing for a level 4 tank in the only level 4 tanks pretty much in a level 6 game. Interesting statistic here, 10 shots fired, 6 shots hit. One was a blind fire shot, but the gun isn't massively accurate, and that's reflected. But a good game. So this was a standard battle on Lakeville, this time a level 4 game, and this was, I used to use the 7.5 centimeter gun back when I was playing way in the early days. The German tank destroyer line was one of the first I decided to go along, and because I like the idea of a kind of snipey tanks with devastating guns in well concealed positions, and this at the time struck me as the gun most appropriate for that on the tank. That was many thousands of games ago, and I've revisited the Hetzer since because I'm playing with some fairly new players now, and they've not progressed much beyond level 5. So this is the first time I'd used it in absolutely ages, and again I'm in a platoon with another Hetzer. We had decided that we were going to have to support this Marder 38. There was no one covering the right flank, and at this point I was kicking myself because trawling through the city streets with the 10.5 centimeter was bound to be fun. My platoon mate's armed with a 10.5, which she swears by. She really likes that gun, so this was very much an experiment for me. I'm just sat here. Usually some fool comes racing down the path down row 4 just to the western flank of the lake, river, whatever, lake. But nothing was coming, and I'd seen that the heavies, a couple of the Hetzers, had appeared on the other flank, and these are the tanks that worried me. Now, by this stage, we started with -2 kills. I don't know what had gone on there. I wasn't feeling optimistic. Obviously, some grade A retardation going on in the team. I just wanted to push on. Hope there was something light and fluffy down here I could bully and try and salvage a win out of it. But the team is already clawing it back. We've clawed back a deficit of 1. And I encountered the first enemy tanks. Now the Covenator is fairly sparsely armed, and this gun is accurate. That was unlucky to get a bounce there, but I'm not even going into sniper mode here. I am just shooting, as you see. And I take out the Covenator, using the good armor of the Hetzer to good effect. I just shoot out this car. The Valentine is a well-armored tank, but for some reason he presents his side to me. The T-28 takes out my engine here, but the Valentine decides he's going to stay where he is. And the Stuart and Marder 38 that have followed me down here deal with the T-28. I had to go deal with this Hetzer that has taken out my platoon mate in the scrap that they had, but he's gone by the time I get round the corner. So for me now, it's a race to get to the flag and hopefully find their artillery and anything that's not paying attention. Unfortunately, as I said, the Hetzer's a reasonably quick tank, but it doesn't accelerate massively fast. The Stuart, on the other hand, is a beast, and if I just quickly flick to free mode, Marder 38T has a better power to weight ratio as well, so these guys are leaving me behind, and the Wesp is going to be a burning corpse by the time I get there. Tantalizingly close, like it always is. So I think, well, these guys are all locked in a big old fight. Let's creep round the back, because there's nothing more satisfying than unloading a shell into the bum of some other unsuspecting fool. That didn't sound at all gay. So, again, I'm been quite pleased with the results from this gun so far. I come across another Hetzer who is facing me. That penetrates the good frontal armor. I take some damage from 38T. My observation device is taken out, but it's right in front of me, so it's not a problem. Bounce that off. Front armor's very good. Finish him off. That's the 4th kill. B1. Get the killing blow. 22 more damage. 5 kills. And we win the game. So looking at the results, 27,870 credits, 1,291 experience with premium, and earned my mastery badge there, so I was quite pleased and a little bit surprised about that, the Ace Tanker Mastery level. Top damage, top experience, 861 experience if you want to gauge for what your Ace Tanker needs to be in a Hetzer without premium. This gun's much more accurate. 15 shots fired, 14 have hit, 13 have penetrated, just over 1,000 damage, and I received 550 potential damage myself. So, a very interesting game. So having looked at those games, if you do decide you want to play the Hetzer, let's quickly look at the research. Now, you can get away without upgrading the tracks and change to the second engine and obviously any of the radios. On a point, the radios, the FUG 11 is only available on the Hetzer, as is the FUG 10, and I realise I've just shown those in reverse order, but I'm sure you'll all get over that. So the load limit is 16.8 tons for the tracks that it starts with. So in order to upgrade from the 1.43 ton 7.5 centimeter to the 10.5, which is 2,100, you are going to need the tracks, and you're going to need them to get the top engine. And the engine you start with has 100 horsepower, and around that time you're going to be 16 tons. The power to weight ratio is terrible, and a bit much closer to the real Hetzer. Off the top of my head, I can't remember which engine it had, but it was fairly underpowered, and it was a very slow vehicle. It was very much designed as a quick emergency stopgap rather than to be the prime of German engineering. So the tank's very sluggish until you get the engine. Now, you don't need to get anything if you just want to play the Stug. But that gun's... that radio's got a range of 290 meters. That's a 100 horsepower engine, and the tracks, who cares really? It's going to be a long grind to get the 12,435 experience needed for the Stug. And this is a fun tank, so you're probably going to want to play it. So tracks first. I get at least to this engine. The research cost isn't too much, 165 horsepower. I mean, that's an extra 65% on top of what you started with, and gives you about a 10 to 1 power to weight ratio. The top engine has 220, so I mean that's still quite a big jump, but you're looking at 850 extra experience. And then it's a personal choice here whether you want to go for the more accurate penetrating gun or the big boom gun. Eventually, this is a keeper in my opinion. This is a tank that is going to stay in my garage, so I have unlocked everything. Again, the radios, you may as well stop at the FUG 10. 3,600 is a lot of experience to get a radio at this lower level, but 5,600 after that. I mean, even the guns aren't even in fact the FUG 10 costs more experience than the 7.5. So in terms of order, tracks, that engine, whichever gun you choose, then the other engine, then the FUG 10, and then the Stug. And if you're going to stick with the tank, then unlock the 11 and the second gun and make it an ace tanker vehicle. So that's what I do on that front. The crew and crew skills. I have gone for 6th sense on my commander, which obviously hasn't kicked in yet because I haven't got it to 100%. But I don't want to have to... If you're willing to overtake the experience hit and overtrain and then retrain to get 6th sense, I'd go, or pay gold and not have to, I'd go camouflage until I got 6th sense, and then till I got to 100%, and then swap it for 6th sense. But I've gone 6th sense, and then the second skill will be camouflage. For the gunner, I've gone camouflage first, and then probably the second skill. It's another one where you need 100%. Deadeye wouldn't be a bad shout, especially if you're using the high explosive shells, increasing the chance to cause crew and module damage. You don't do terribly much turret rotation, so snapshot, armourer. It's so, just buy a repair kit. On the repair kit front, people who say it's not worth buying repair kits for the low level tanks are foolish. They can make the difference between winning and losing a game. If you can afford it, buy it, because at the end of the day you can choose not to use it and it will still be there for when you have a higher level tank and you choose to put it on that. So I always go for this combo: repair kit, first aid, and fire extinguisher, and you get real quick at pressing 6 and putting out fires, and it will save you tons of experience. It's only slightly frustrating when you then get killed with a shot 10 seconds later, but yeah, skills. So Deadeye would be my second on the it goes to 100% front, and then I'm looking at repairs, and then firefighting, and then the whole crew getting brothers in arms. But designated target again, there's another one that comes in when you get to 100%. Armor at least levels, and snapshot doesn't really have a profound effect. I'm fairly certain that snapshot has an effect when you move non-turreted tanks, when you move the gun, but the gun's so inaccurate that you want to get close enough that you're not going to miss if you're using the 10.5 centimeters. So it might be a little bit more valuable with the 7.5, but then you tend to be at longer distances shooting. So camouflage first, definitely. For the driver, I've gone for off-road driving, because you want to get this into position quickly, and a little bit less ground resistance makes a difference, especially with the poor power to weight ratio. You want as little resistance as possible. I say poor, fair, we'll call it fair. And the loader, I've gone with camouflage, because I need 100% and it doesn't do anything all that good. And I need 100% and it doesn't do anything all that good. And I need 100% and it doesn't do anything all that good, because the kind of high explosive shells that are going to blow up my ammo rack are going to do the 270 hit points necessary to kill me. So, yeah. Loader skills. Very exciting. Can't get enough of them. Love them. I always find myself taking camouflage or repairs, and then after that, repairs or camouflage based on what I've had first, and then firefighting, and then brothers in arms. Though firefighting, to be honest, if you've got fire extinguishers, is also a fairly duff skill. It's only if you're a skinflint or you have slow reactions that I'd even bother with that skill. Same goes for the driver. His camouflage next. Camouflage is a key skill. This is a very stealthy tank. In terms of upgrade, camouflage net, because it makes you more stealthy, and sometimes you want to be stealthy in this tank. Medium caliber tank armor, because that means you do 10% more shots in the same amount of time. And improved ventilation, 5% to all crew skills, makes your gun slightly more accurate, your reload time slightly faster, your speed it just makes the tank generally better. Enhanced gun length, I mean, you're seriously shelling out here if you've got 500,000 to blow on this tank. The 200,000 for this thing was perhaps excessive, but as I say, this is a keeper and I can afford it, so I went for it. But it's probably not worth it. The gun's not that accurate, and you usually have to take your time and think about the shot anyway. I would choose the ventilation, not only because it's way cheaper, but because it's it affects the performance across the spectrum. So, I mean, the decision's there, it's up to you. So, my verdict. We've got a couple of choices with this tank. Reference to this owner how you want to perform, but both have their merits. Personally, I think the 10.5 is more fun. Something satisfying, deeply satisfying, about just killing a person with one shot. And knowing that they're sat there playing, deeply frustrated, whining about how overpowered you are. And I take great joy in that. So, in the gun war, I would probably choose the 10.5, just for moments like this. Boom, dead. Overall, the tank's great. It has its weaknesses. It's not. I don't think it's massively overpowered. The gun's not accurate. Well, the 10.5 is not accurate. The armour at the side and rear is terrible. Your mobility is not amazing. It's good. But what this tank is tremendous fun. You have a great capacity to just frustrate the hell out of people who, bad players are fodder for this vehicle. It is an exceptional punisher of young, inexperienced players who don't realise that it's not that hard to take out your track, get behind you and cause mayhem, as long as don't have to place a Hetzer at range, and at range there's a good chance it will miss you. So Hetzer alone is a vulnerable Hetzer to an experienced player, but thankfully at this level you don't get too many experienced players. This is a fun little tank, and I would absolutely recommend everyone get it, keep it in their garage, and every now and then use it as a prime steel clubbing tool. Well, I hope that review was interesting. You got the Mastery Badge game thrown in for free. Please feel free to check out my other videos, and mod info can be found here.